you so much for coming this evening. We really appreciate it. I would just like to do a few housekeeping notes. You have received a survey, and we did receive a grant, and this will allow us to be able to report back to the agency. So it's really important that you fill that out for us. We really appreciate that. And there's also a question form for you. So when you have questions at the end of the talk, we're going to have a panel up here. So you can just send them to the side. We'll have people on the side that will pick those up and bring them forward for later. Thank you so much. And just like to welcome you and thank you for coming to this symposium on how a river can shape a community. My name is Jane Anderson, and I'm the Executive Director for the Friends of the River Foundation. The Friends of the River have been looking forward to Jeff coming to Salina. I know this is a great opportunity for all of us. And at this time, we would like to recognize our donors that have helped sponsor this event. The Greater Salina Community Foundation, the Dane Hansen Grant, Radio Kansas, Pronto Print, the Rotary Club of Salina, and the Salina Community Theatre. Would you join me in a thank you? Now I would like to introduce the President of the Friends of the River Board, Jessica Martin.
Thank you all for coming this evening. We are really excited to have Jeff Shoemaker join us all the way from Denver, Colorado. He's the Executive Director of the Greenway Foundation, and together with public and private partners, they've invested over $500 million into their South Platte River, and as a result, it's brought in about $20 billion, I heard this morning, in economic impact. They have a great educational program for their youth, and we're just really excited for him to share his story with us and see how we might be able to apply some of those same lessons here in Salina. So with that, I'll let Jeff take the show.
How's everybody doing tonight? Go Royals. How many of you are taping the game tonight? Okay, so I'm thinking that I can do one of two things, and I'll be in trouble for doing either one of them, and that is not telling you what the score is or telling you what the score is. And so I think I'm just gonna hang back, and I'm thinking there might be a cell phone or two in the audience, and so for those of you that aren't taping, check, and if I hear a then I'll know that somebody struck out, and if I hear a really loud woohoo, then I'll know it's going well. And so I so appreciate your being here tonight on this night, based on a, sports are sports, but it's fun and it's cool, and I appreciate your choosing this over watching the game, and it's a pleasure for me to be here tonight. I'm Jeff Shoemaker. I run the Greenway Foundation on the days that it doesn't run me. It is a family thing. My father founded this foundation back in 1974 when he was 47 years old. I've got him by 13 years now, and I started working when I was 27 years old, and as some of the folks earlier tonight heard, it was going to be a 6-month transitional gig for me from June of '82 to the end of the year, and I'm proud that I'm in my 34th year at this foundation. And why is that? And the reason is I truly do feel I have the single best job in the entire world, because each and every day I get up and in some form or fashion take on and champion one of the most degraded, abandoned, defiled, disgusting, crude, rude, ugly urban waterways on the face of this planet. Mark Twain's infamous quote about the South Platte River when he visited well over, obviously, a century ago, he said, "It's too thick to drink, it's too thin to plow, it's a bothersome, pestiferous nothing of a river. It's a joke to call the South Platte a river at all." And as I said earlier today at lunch, Mr. Clemens may have been right when he offered those quotes, but he ain't right today. He isn't right today. So, and thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me also tell you this, two things. I have had such a great day here today. I've had 8 hours in your community, but I've learned a great deal in that 8 hours, and I've learned about the generosity this community has for each other. I've learned about the generosity this community has for its children, for its city, for its arts. I mean, this facility, you guys, this is knockout cool. I mean, this is just amazing. Denver, you know, we need 2 or 3 of these in my town. So be proud of yourselves for making that commitment. And be proud of yourselves for being here tonight because you care about your river, the Smoky Hill River, that what I'm not here to do today is to tell you what you need to do with your river. That's none of my business. It would be hubris, unbridled for me to walk into your hometown and tell you this is, and this is how, and this is when, and this is how much, and this is where from. That's not the reason I came here today. I came here to learn. I came here to come back in a way. I spent part of my freshman year at Bethany College in 1970 when there really was electricity at the time, and I haven't been back in a long time. So, you know, for me to say to you I'm back home, that would be over the top. But it's great. It's great to be back in Salina, and I'm hoping this is not a one and done thing. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. But if it is a one and done thing in terms of the vision and the hope that your river has, I want to tell you this, and sometimes doing something for 3.5 decades teaches you 1 or 2 things. I can absolutely tell you that the potential for your waterway is without limit. It is boundless. Your river is challenged right now. Its accessibility is challenged. The flows in your river are challenged. But I'm going to show you a video and show you what the river was and what the river is today. I'm going to walk you through a PowerPoint, and I do a PowerPoint, which means that there's no words, so I'm not going to read a PowerPoint, which makes me crazy. And I'm going to walk through some images of what we're doing now. As I spoke about today at lunch, we're asked all the time after 41 years, when are you guys going to be done on this river thing? And the short version is there is no done. There's never done. Done does not exist. When are you done with a child's education? When are you done with an arts center? When are you done with a theater? You're not done. You just keep plugging away and making it happen. And so right now we are in the 3rd of 5 years of bringing $30 million, pardon me, of additional enhancements to the South Platte River. And there are 4 aspects to those enhancements, and there are 4 sources of funding for those enhancements. The 4 areas of improvement are environmental, recreational, water quality, and flood control. Everything that we do in Denver on the river has all 4 components at a given time. Sometimes more flood control than recreation, sometimes more water quality than environmental. But there is a multifaceted benefit to every one of our projects, and that's because we bring in, my corny statement is that we bring in all 4 legs of the progress chair, which is private, public, philanthropic, and political, and I'm really proud that I just remembered all 4 of those right now all by myself with no cheat notes. And joking aside, that's what you do. One guy is all about flood control. I want to make it safe. Somebody else is about, I want a swimmable and fishable river. Somebody else is about, I want a pathway system that lets me get near and adjacent to a river. And the good point in all of that is there are funding, dedicated, focused, strategized funding sources that can make that all happen. So the Greenway Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit. We have no power to do anything whatsoever. We were not created by government. We are not owned by government. I'm an ex-legislator. I'm not an anti-government guy, but my father and I came up with a phrase a while ago, and that is no power is all power. No power is all power. And what that means is nobody has to listen to a bloody word that I say at the Greenway Foundation. Nobody has to do anything. I don't get to go into a room and say, thou shall. What I do come into a room is, will you please? And what we leave outside of that room is me, myself, and I, and what we bring into that room is we, us, and our. And that's how you make things happen. I care nothing about credit. The fact that the South Platte River is, according to our mayor, the #1 opportunity for new and sustainable jobs and economy in our city, that's a great thing. I will tell you that if you took 1,000 people that use one little section of the river every day and asked them, can you name the nonprofit that's been beating away at this sucker for over 4 decades, you might get a 5% response. It's not that we're shy. That's just the nature of things. It's not the credit, it's the results. That's how I was brought up. I come from Midwest stock. I come from Northwest Iowa stock. I love the Midwest. The Midwest is the heart of this country in terms of soul and ethic and decency, and so that's how I was raised, and that's how I've attempted. I am the father, proud father of 4 daughters and a granddaughter, and yes, I'm still married, and so, you know, I used to be 6'3", and, you know, and there's a lot more gray in this beard. I really shouldn't grow it anymore, but joking aside, here's what we just try to make stuff happen at the Greenway Foundation. That's what we try to do. We just try to make our community better. And I truly do believe, yes, $500 million of investment, yes, $20 billion of recognizable, qualifiable economic benefit, residential, retail, commercial, light industry, entertainment, sports venues. We've got this little football team. Their stadium is right along the river. We have a really fun to watch, but don't count on them to win, baseball team in our town, right along the river. We have a wonderful arena that houses our hockey team and our basketball team, right along the river. We have a children's museum on the river. We have an aquarium on the river. We have an REI flagship store right on the river. We have an amusement park called Elitch's right on the river. We have, at the height of the real estate market, in terms of the zip code 80210, which is the downtown Central Platte Valley area, at the time their residential values were second only to the town of Aspen. For those of you who know Aspen, that's not a small thing. We also are very dedicated to make sure that this river is not all about the upper 5 or 10 or 15% of our economic and social and cultural community. The river needs to be for everybody, and we're making sure that as development happens, that there are those plans and those goals and those visions, so that whether you make $1 a day or $50 a day, you too can live along a river that nobody wanted, a river that I didn't know existed when it flooded in 1965. There was no river. The river was ecologically dead. It was lethal to consume. There were no trails, there were no parks, there was no fish, there were no fish, there was no fishing. You might, if you want to fish for a bumper or a fish for a stovetop lid, you could probably find that down there. There were 5 landfill dump sites along the river, 3 along its prime tributary. Literally, as a boy, when you had extra trash, you could only have 1 trash can in town. Where did you go with your extra trash? You went to, and I'm not making this up, your neighborhood dump. And your neighborhood dump was, at one point or another, along an 11-mile river called the quote-unquote South Platte. So as I move Jane into the video, I will tell you this, and I'll finish it up in a second. There is no river that mankind defiled any more significantly than what Denver did to its river, and I don't think there's been a better resurgence of a river than's taken place in Denver, and that's big talk from out of town, but I think the video that you see will back that talk. Then I want to show you a PowerPoint, and then what I want to do that's most fun for me is please fill out a question. Ask me anything. If you think everything I've told you is full of beans, then say, Shoemaker, you're full of beans. Trust me, it's not the first time, okay? But ask me the questions you want to ask that brings you here. I'm not looking for powder puff questions. I'm looking for questions, we're looking for questions that brought you here tonight, and we'll do our best to answer them. So with that, kick her off, boss. One of the key reasons Denver is the strong international city is because we have a vibrant river.
And it has really changed the way we look at an urban resource flowing through the city.
And without that environmental asset, I don't believe that all of the adjacent development, be it residential or commercial, I don't think their vitality, strength, and existence would be where they are today.
The Greenway Foundation has changed the landscape of Denver in a lot of ways. 40 years ago, there was no concept that there even was a river in town. There were no parks, there were no trails, there was no open space.
There was a complete lack of care about the condition of the river and the fact that it was ecologically dead and poisonous.
And what has transpired just in the last 40 years in terms of bringing it back from a running sewer to a big enhancement for the community is a great story in itself.
Without the Greenway Foundation, I don't think we would have made the strides that we have in terms of cleanup, in terms of recreational use.
And so to go from that to what we have today in Confluence Park with people swimming and boating and paddleboarding and kayaking, I think it's changed everything about the city because it runs right through the heart of the city.
This is just one example about how Denver's South Platte and the adjoining waterways truly are an intrinsic part of the dynamic, the feel, and the vibrancy of our city.
The work that the Greenway Foundation does is truly transformative, and really transformative for those children in our community who have the least, who don't have access or that connection to nature.
Let's do it all together, so we're doing it at the same time. You ready? Here's the beach.
Spree is a great organization. It's sponsored by the Greenway Foundation. It does give them an awareness of, water usage and water conservation.
My life was affected because of Greenway because it brought more of a knowledge to my understanding of the environment. I feel like the Greenway Foundation has changed the landscape of Denver, mostly because of what we see here at the pond, where it used to be basically a dump.
Kids get in the river. They are in it every day. They're catching crawdads, they're catching fish. They come home inspired every day and tell me things about the city that I didn't know. The Spree program wouldn't be here today without the help and generosity of the Greenway Foundation.
And there are many, many great dreams and plans for the river that will mean the future of Denver is even better than it is now.
When you are riding on the Greenway is that there's so much left to do. It will never end. It will never be finished, which is nice. It will always change.
I am very excited about some of the future projects, but of course they need funding.
Where there's a will, there's a way, and all it takes is people caring and wanting it, and you can find a way to get anything done. Come down, hang out, have a picnic, get on a paddleboard, and experience what the river is today, and then dream with us. What's your vision for what the river could be?
We're embarking on a Friends of the South Platte River campaign and hoping that everybody will understand what a tremendous benefit it is to them to participate and to provide support and leadership for the future.
The Greenway Foundation is only able to enact its mission to preserve, protect, enhance, and engage the South Platte River with the support of the community. We need individuals, we need companies, we need regional support, we need public, private, philanthropic support to allow us to continue to create what we believe is one of the greatest urban waterways in the United States. There you go. If you can save the South Platte River, you can save any river. We have our mission broken out in two areas. You saw it on the video: revitalizing river, re-engaging communities. How do we do that? Let's take the first, revitalizing river, or our enhancement side. You continue to find ways and opportunities to bring back a river. Denver turned its backside, to put it nicely, on a river for well over a century. For the young people in the room, what's easier to do, mess up your room or pick up your room? Okay, it's a lot easier to mess up your room, and it's not too fun when mom or dad says, go pick up your room. And it takes more time and it takes more effort. Well, that corny analogy, we've been at this for 4 decades after abusing a river for twice plus that. So we've got a journey to go. Have we made progress? Obviously, I'd like to say we have. Are we done? Again, there is no done. As Chris Shear said, there's always something more to do. So we're involved in efforts to make the river safer and better and healthier and more attractive. The other side of our mission is re-engaging communities. As you saw, we have a youth education program, SPREE, South Platte River Environmental Education. Go on a learning spree is our little corny phrase. This program is run by 3 of my staff that are full-time, plus others that are part-time. We've gotten, with great pride, I said this at lunch today, more Colorado Alliance of Environmental Education awards than any other educational nonprofit in the state. I'm extremely proud of that. I'm a school teacher by education, and when I left school teaching to come back to Denver at my father's request to take over his foundation, I felt there was a need to bring kids down to the river from day one. And so that's 1982, so think about how old they are today. And we literally have children of those children come down to the river. So that's a really fun thing for this old guy. And 10,000 kids during the school year, specified programs based on grade, different parks based on grade. We have summer camps, 3 locations, 10 weeks every summer. When you come to a summer camp at the Greenway Foundation, if you go all 10 weeks in a row, you never do the same thing twice. It's not like you do plastics and then leather and then metal and then plastics and leather and metal. You do something different. And here's what these kids don't have in front of them. And for the young people that are here that are looking at their tablets or looking at their phones, there's nothing wrong with that, but you don't do those at a spree summer camp. What you do is you get outside and you get dirty and you get stinky and you get hot and you get tired and you go home and you eat and go to bed because the next day you come back out. We have a River Ranger program, as you witnessed in the video. We take a dozen high school at-risk teens every year, barely care about getting a GED, much less graduating, and by the end of a 12-week program, they all commit to college. They all commit to college. And we provide assistance and scholarships. We also provide counseling to get them in, because why? Because we want them to be environmental educators. The challenge in environmental education right now is it's too one-sided in terms of its ethnicity. We need to help children of all, young people of all backgrounds, all ethnicities, all cultures want to get involved in teaching children. We believe in nature in your own backyard. So many of the citizenry that we serve, especially at the young age, they're never going to get up to the mountains. Number one, RTD or a bus system doesn't go to the mountains. Number two, they don't have the dollars to do it if they could get there. So we believe in nature in your own backyard. We have 18 parks along the river and an 11-mile trail system that travels the entire bit. Walk to nature. Get outside and play. We've been doing health and wellness since 1982. And we also have special events. We have free events, be they cleanups, be they music, be they fun, be they paddleboarding, and we have a couple fundraisers right down on the river. And so that's also part of how we try to engage our community and bond them with that community. And every single one of the ideas and the thoughts that I'm talking to you about today can absolutely happen on your amazing river, because blessedly, mercifully, your forefathers did not do to your river what my forefathers did to my river. That's simple. Now, I'm short shrifting what it will take. I understand that. Again, you do something long enough, you can just see what you can see. Be it age or be it tenure, you can see what you can see. And I've had my short time. I'm on a plane at, I'm out of here at 7:30 in the morning. But I know more than ever that you have this amazing opportunity to expand what you're already doing for a community, and that is make it the absolute best it can be on so many fronts. Let me show you a little PowerPoint to talk to you about what we're doing today, and then I'm going to sit down and take your questions and let people smarter than me join me on the stage, and I'm going to do this. Maybe. There we go. So I can see my own PowerPoint. So South Platte River, 2007, $0, zero vision. 2010, a completed vision but no money. 2013, $30 million in the bank. 2015, with one more year to go, those $30 million of improvements will be put in place. Next. 5 different project sites, as you can see. Okay? This is a small tributary that comes into a small river. By the way, our river is very comparable to your river in terms of size and scope. Maybe a little bigger, but a good comparison that I talked about today is if those of you that have maybe been to Boulder, Colorado, Boulder Creek, an absolute direct comparable to your river. So this is what the gulch was before. Just a big concrete tube. Weir Gulch, no gulch, no waterway. Next. And this is what we've done since then. Opened it up. It's a little hard to tell in the slide, but this is what it is today. It opens up and it actually runs through a wetlands feature with cattails and other plants. So when the water from the gulch hits the river, it's cleaner than it was when it came down the gulch. It's also by a low-income housing project. Again, speaking to the fact that the river needs to be for all people. What the slide doesn't show is a playground that these kids have. And you've got to understand the generational viewpoint of this river, and that is river bad, river scary, river ugly, river dangerous, river no. And now we see kids playing on the river and engaging the river every day. Next. One of the projects I'm proudest of is Johnson Habitat Park. Next. This was one of the 5 landfill dump sites that we talked about, and by irony, it was my neighborhood dump site as a kid. It's where my dad and I every other Saturday brought a couple gunny sacks. How many people even know the term gunny sack? None of you are in high school, man. And you brought gunny sacks down and you dumped it in, and you did that, and that was our neighborhood dump, and that's where it is. It's now a $7.5 million fully reclaimed outdoor education learning park. Next slide. Where what you can do in this park is not only do structured learning, but unstructured play, and we bring in families from around the inner city, and we have a great partnership with Coleman and with REI, and we teach them how to pitch a tent, we teach them how to cook under an open fire, how to bait a hook and cast a line, how to get in a kayak and paddle in a river that actually is clean and safe enough to paddle in. Next. This is about a 1.5-mile section of the river that has 2 improvements to it, okay? This is the area that looks somewhat familiar to me, to your river. This may be a little wider of a stretch, but look at overgrowth, look at lack of accessibility, look at invasive species up and down the riverway. This was a drop structure used for reasons it's no longer needed. Next slide. So we opened up the river. We took out the trees that shouldn't be there. We added trees that need to be there. We changed the slope of the bank. We made it accessible. We removed the drop structure, and now this is one of the healthiest sections for wildlife in the city instead of being conversely the worst. Next. Look at the urbanity. I don't even know if that's a word. I just made that one up. Seriously, I have to go look it up. Urbanness. Look at the urbanness of this area, and look at the relatively small size of the river. Landfill dump site, junkyard site, 50 years ago. 2 parks coming in. Next slide. And in each case, what we're doing is pushing the river out, pushing the river back into an area, taking the trail and putting it on the back side of a park so there's not conflict of usage between people that are playing in the park and getting down on the river and people who are riding by. I'm an avid bicyclist, and I try to do 15 to 18 miles an hour. That's not what you want when you've got wonderful young kids like my 3-year-old granddaughter with her mom and dad trying to come down to the river. So you factor in your design for all types of usage, and again, this is a project, all 4 aspects of what I talked about: flood control, water quality, environment, and recreation improvement. Next. Next. That's all right. That's perfect. No, the other one I don't care about. That's fine. Time is money. Time is precious. Ball game going on. So, Confluence Park. Have any of you been to REI along the river in Denver? Okay. What it was a transit barn at one point, and then it became kind of the world's best collection of cars and buggies and this and that and the other thing. But structurally, it was about to be, let's just say, gone, if you will. And REI, the city, the Greenway Foundation, the state, other opportunities came in, and it's now one of the premier, that's the good one, one of the premier flagship stores in the United States. This is the birthplace of Denver. It's where Cherry Creek meets the South Platte. It's where our city began. It was the single most polluted area along the river 50 years ago. It is now the most actively used site of many actively used sites along the river, but it's being, as I said earlier today, rode hard and put up wet. It was designed and built back initially in '75. Improvements, expansions, evolutions have happened, but we need to take a look. This is another example of done, you're never done. When my father dedicated the park on Labor Day of 1975, the joke in the paper was, who the heck is going to go down and use that? There's a half-a-mile trail here, half-a-mile trail up Cherry Creek. Who's going to make a trip to come down and use this crazy thing? Well, there's a lot of crazy people down there living and playing, as you can see in the background. So we need to take this park and reinvent it, next slide, and make it better. And then the last area, and I'll focus on this and one other thing, and then I'm going to sit my you-know-what down. Next slide. Oops, another one. There we are. We're redoing ramps. We're redoing a plaza. It was great in '75. Doesn't meet ADA. I'm telling everybody this is my stupid joke. We were doing ADA when it stood for the American Dairy Association. So thank you. Thank you. I'm here till Thursday. Thank you. And so we're taking the ramp system and the plaza, actually named after my dad, and redoing it, and it'll be prettier and better. Dana Crawford. By the way, Dana Crawford, that was the woman that was one of the 2 women speakers. Dana Crawford, guess where she's from? Salina, Kansas. Okay. Original board member. Okay. Iconic person in Denver. She literally called me up yesterday. Now, you're going to Salina tomorrow. Yeah, right. She says, don't embarrass me. That's what she said. So for those of you who know Dana, please give me an A+, or at least not a D-. Next slide. And then this is previously one of the most industrial areas of Denver. It is south of I-70. For those of you that know the stock show area, kind of, it's just south of there. It's called River North or Rhino. And industrial properties are being turned into mixed use. Restaurants, retail, commercial, light industry, a couple brew pubs are in there. So what we did is went in and bought 3 properties, and we're turning it into an urban park, and it will have a very urban feel to it. There is not one park along the South Platte River that's a clone of another. Each one kind of has its own feel, its own taste, its own function, its own flavor, and its own clientele. Next. So let me close with this. You're never done. 4 areas along the river within 11 miles that are transitional right now. One is the National Western Stock Show area. We either lose the stock show moves, or we take care and bring the stock show back, only we make it even better than it is. And it's going to happen. There's a vote that's going to happen on Tuesday the 3rd to continue a tourism tax. If that happens, that will be a key funding, along with funding from the state and funding from developers and funding from the stock show, to take and make it a net zero in terms of utilities and emissions and all of that. And it's going to be a world-class facility year-round, not just part of the year. But there are about 8 different facets of the National Western Center, and there was a poll that was put out saying, and one of those facets is reclaiming the river and connecting the river to the National Western Center, because it's not today. And of all the things that this great vision is going to be, 82.5% said the number one thing I care about is making my river better. And think of what the economics will be. Colorado State University is going to have a water center right down on the river. The back side of the city has become the front side. That's one example. Number 2 is the the continuation of Rhino and the expansion of River North. That's about 60% done. That's going to be built out within the next 5 years. Third, there is areas in the Central Platte Valley that are developed right now in an entertainment way. The land value is such that the entertainment is going to move, and residential, retail, commercial development is going to come in. The most popular place, I believe, within 10 years to live in the city and county of Denver will continue to be the South Platte River. Fourth, the Sun Valley area, low-income neighborhood, we're going to take, and there's a whole plan to rethink how housing exists, but instead of the backside being on the river and river being bad and scary, river good and river healthy. And the last is a huge piece of property in Denver, the Gates Rubber Company site, for those of you that know my town. That's gone, and that's going to be redeveloped. And again, in every single connection, every one of those, 5 of the hottest development sites along the South Platte River. Why? In the city and county of Denver. Why? Because it's along the South Platte River. And we work very hard to make sure that along with that development, that the developers are players in making sure that there's sufficient parks and open space along their areas, and that they invest in connecting their area to the South Platte River. My final thing, if you can take the South Platte River in Denver, Colorado, and transform it like you've seen today, from just an embarrassment, an iconic eyesore, into, I think, absolutely biasly, the iconic heartbeat of a city. Taking back your river is just an assured thing. How you do it, when you do it, where you do it. You've got an amazing executive director. You've got an amazing board. You've got city leaders here today. This is your opportunity. And if there's any way that the Greenway Foundation and Jeff Shoemaker can be involved in helping you do that, I'm not shilling for work. I'm just telling you I care about this, and I'd love to be involved, even if it's just getting your emails about what you're doing for your river. So I'm not here to tell you how to do that. I'm here to tell you what we did. Clone us, repeat us, steal us, and make it your own. I'm done. Thank you all very, very much.
At this time, we're going to ask the panel to come down. Where are you? And also, if you do have questions, if my volunteers could stand on the ends of the aisles and pick up, if you just send them down to the end, we'll be asking those questions in just a minute as soon as we get them. Where's Jason? Jason and Martha? Oh, there you are. Yeah, you can come on down. There you are. I can see you in the dark. Okay.
We thought you slipped off.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. Thank you.
So
I'm going to read the question,
Why don't
then
we
I'll
share?
hand it off. Yeah, have
Yeah.
them take,
Can we
share one.
share one device?
Yeah,
That way.
okay. Okay, you ready? This is from Wayne Lowen. The river was diverted after or because of the 1951 flood. What have you done to ensure that a 500-year flood does not damage all of the infrastructure built around the river?
Okay, that's a good question. Most people know that after the 51 flood, and there were many floods before that, and quite honestly, if you have a long enough memory, you'll realize that those floods, the largest ones, had the impact of flooding your downtown. That's a pretty big deal. But the Corps of Engineers came into town in the late 50s and early 60s, and they built the flood control levee. The standard that they built that to is what they call a 100-year flood. You wouldn't typically see a levee built to a 500-year flood level, but a 100-year flood level. And some people say that's a 1% chance in any year, or a one chance in 100 years of having a flood in your community. And our levee has withstood, since early 60s, every rainstorm that's come against it, and we just recently had to have it looked at because the Federal Emergency Management Agency decided that they wanted to change some maps, and they had to look at the levees, even though that's historically a Corps of Engineers thing, and they wanted to certify those. So we took a look at that, made a real minor adjustment after the engineers looked at it, and we think we're good protecting the community from a 100-year flood, which is a standard into the long-term future.
Okay, this is from Ann Knowles. We have questions about the flood control and how do you handle that, and I think you just answered that, but also to dredging the silt, how would that happen?
We've spent a lot of time talking about dredging the silt, and the silt is a result of the flow bypassing the channel through the city, and once that occurred, then the velocity of the water slowed down and the silt settled out into the channel from nearly over by Bill Burke Park, the flood control dike, to the west side of Ohio Street in through there has 7 or 8 feet of silt, so it's a large volume of silt, and it's not an easy task to remove that. And there'd be a process of review and approval through the Corps and different types of permits. And probably the most efficient and effective way would be to remove that silt with heavy type construction equipment that you'd see on a construction project. Remove that out onto soil, let it dewater some, and then hopefully find a valuable use for that. We removed some sediment from the channel. About a month ago, we analyzed that silt so we would have some idea, what could that silt be used for in the future. And during the course of the river project, we analyzed it for, is there any hazardous materials in there? And we found none. So we think we have a product that could be used in other locations, but heavy equipment and hard work.
This is from Greg Taylor. As for funding, how do you convince voters to approve tax money being spent on something other than good streets?
It's a good question. We all like our streets. But one of the things that they say about government is you can't please everyone. But we work very hard to, and one thing we realize is that a lot of people like good streets. They like to have water that when they get up in the morning and they turn it on, it comes out of the faucet. And when they flush the stool, they want it to go away. And so there are lots of other services. They like the impact of the arts in our community. They like the parks and recreation programs and many of the other things that we do. So our goal is to balance the needs that we know are in our community, to do that in a reasonable way, to be as efficient as we can, and to listen. And because a lot of it is we have to listen and find out what does the community want. And believe it or not, it's different today than it might have been 20 years ago. It does change. And so we have to be open asking the question, not just today, but next year and the year after that and the year after that and well into the future. And then, like I said, just try to meet those needs. So the streets are an important need, and we all know that, but it goes far beyond that. And our job is to do that. And if the community says that restoration of a river that once was the reason we have a community here is important, then we're ready to do that. But it's a community decision.
Let me speak to Denver, and it's a great question. How do you convince voters to approve tax money being spent on something other than, and I'll just say, X? You have to prove that there's a direct and a long-term benefit. I had the honor of serving in the legislature for 6 years in Colorado. I only tell you that bit of political trivia because it was my job on any given day to explain to my constituency what I was doing with their dollars. Emphasis, their dollars, not my dollars, their dollars. And what we try to do, I'll give you the tourism tax. Why am I going to personally and professionally ask the voters to continue a tax versus let that tax decline in a couple years? I want to show them why the continuing investment of their dollars will bring about great results for their city, both personally for them. How can I, if I'm paying this tax, what do I get for it for my family? So you talk about, in this case, you talk about accessibility to a waterway. You talk about a path system that offers alternative transportation. You talk about the economic benefits. You talk about the connections. Look at all the different amenities and facilities along your city that have a common connection called your river. So it's respecting the voter. One of the biggest mistakes that an elected official can make is thinking that they've got things figured out better than the people they represent. Now that's a nice fat thing to say from out-of-town Charlie here, but it's true. What you do is you go into the voting community and you say, here's why I feel justified in asking you to fund this privately, to continue to fund this publicly, or to increase your taxation to fund it publicly. And it's my belief that when you respect and you engage and you educate and you inform, the voters are a reasonable, balanced thinking community, and if you've got a good cause and you spell it out right and they know where their money's going to go, they'll support something like a river reclamation.
I think I forgot to introduce, this is our city manager, Jason Gage, and our utilities director, Martha Tasker. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. All right. Having seen our river, can you suggest a relatively inexpensive yet impactful project that could spark community interest and interaction with our river?
I'll be the fool that takes this one first. Off the top of my head, I'd get a poll out to the community and I'd find, I'll make up a number, 5 areas of interest. You've got this nationally recognized arts festival that goes on. You've got a YMCA, you've got a convention center, you've got a fairgrounds. I'll stop there. All of those have independent value to most likely everybody's lives in this city. What do they have in connection? A river. So what you do is you say, here are all the areas along the river that could have or have positive impact in your life. Tell me what's the top 3. What do you care about the most? Number 1, number 2, number 3. And then you prioritize based on that and a lot of other things. Some of it is practicality of building. Some of it is cost. Some of it is, CBR cost-benefit ratio. Best bang for the buck. Some of it is easiest to build. You want to have a quick win on something like this. You want to have something that you can bring people to and show them made a difference, but then you try to also bring that connectability to different features along your river. Again, the kicker is, and I know that's how it works in your community, is engaging with the community, engaging with the citizenry, listening. And my dad had a lot of great sayings. One of them was, if you need 100% to be happy, you're going to be miserable all your life. All right? So nobody gets everything, but what you try to do is make sure in a proper prioritized order that everybody at some point gets something.
This is from Andrea, I think it's Randecker. What are your plans for the creek but river around Oakdale Park, and what effect will it have for the people on South Front Street?
I'm thinking of the location, trying to get that square in my mind. And along Front Street, what we, in the original concept, was more of a concrete lined basin with some activities there. And a lot of work really needs to be done before I could give a lot of information to how that might affect the property owners. We really need to get some preliminary design work done and survey work done to really get a feel for what it might really do along there, and to actually look at ownership and determine where can we best get access in and out of the river channel. And so to really say how it might affect the individuals, I struggle with giving a definite answer that might change based on the physical design. The hope would be more of an open area with, the concept had to do with the concrete channel, and which way it would reflect off of the existing river channel hasn't been determined. With trails and lighting was the concept for a portion of the river in there. Jason, would you like to add a little bit maybe?
Sure. One part of the question had to do with Oakdale Park, and a lot of people, when you think of a river project, you simply think of hardscape. I mean, how many of you have been to Oklahoma City and been down to Bricktown? Okay, quite a few people. How many have been to San Antonio? Quite a few people, and that's what you envision. And certainly if you look at the master plan that we have, there's a little piece of that there too, because quite honestly, we like to gather, and the Smoky Hill River Festival is a good example, but unfortunately, we can't talk Brad Anderson into doing that every single day of the year. So how awesome would it be to have a hangout spot that we could go to, all the time, and any time that you would want to go. So that's really cool. But quite honestly, when you think of the river, truly, most of the river, probably 80–90% of the river, you're talking about a natural environment where similar to the picture that you saw of the South Platte River here, and you're thinking about the grassy areas where you can actually go and maybe enter into the river and play in the river, or a nice, with some riprap, which is small rocks along the edges, and just a natural place to enjoy the river, to watch it flow, to listen to it, to see wildlife, trees, whatever it might be that is important for you. That's really most of what would happen after you go back and get all the sediment out. You'd reshape those edges and make it where people can get to it, and you could walk to it, you could hike to it, you could bike to it, you could get there just about any way you'd like to. That's really what most of the project is really about.
Thank you. What one thing can citizens of this community do to have the largest impact and make it possible for the river to come back?
I'll start with that. I have a feeling others might have some thoughts as well, but I think the first thing is, and as I mentioned, it's not the city government's responsibility to just do something like that. And some people think, well, you're the city government, you're just supposed to do something like that if you support it. But the city government, we're supposed to reflect what the community wants us to do. And so, and it's really hard to do. I tell people, when you put 5 people, the elected folks, and you put them in a chair, you take them off the street and you put them in chairs and you say, what do the people of Salina want you to do? That's a very, very difficult question. And so I think the number one thing that you could do is, if it's something that you support, or if you have questions about it, vocalize your thoughts. Let the governing body know if you support it. Let them know if you have questions. We can then answer those questions, but don't sit back and be quiet, because we don't know. We need to know what the community thinks. And if you do support it, I would say get out there, help them clean it up today, help raise money. Just keep that support ongoing, and at some point, if it may become a real live project for us.
He hit it spot on. 2 words: advocate and donate. Okay, advocate with your elected officials. They work for you. They're here tonight. They work for you. If you want your elected officials to enact and engage in what you want done, get in and advocate, and bring your friends and advocate. The second thing is, you got a 501c3 right here. So as a fellow receiver of discretionary dollars, write a tax-deductible check. Write it for a nickel. Write it for $5. But get engaged. One of the greatest ways we can get large money is by having large volumes of individual donations come into the room and be part of the mix.
So you heard that. Advocate, donate, but please don't agitate, okay?
That's awesome.
I would just invite everybody to also, if you have questions, to contact Jane or me. We're more than happy to come meet with you, answer questions. I think not only being advocate, but being educated and have a good understanding of the project, so that we have the correct information out there. We've met with neighbors and neighborhoods, people come to the office. We're more than willing to sit down and talk with you and take your concerns to Martha and Jason to find out the answers.
We are looking for volunteers, so that's also another thing, that there are projects coming, and we would love to have you sign up for that. So there's plenty of things to do. There really are. Anyone else? Okay. This is from Mark Wally. The South Platte River has numerous rivers, lakes, and reservoirs feeding it. Our river is fed solely by and at the discretion of the Army Corps of Engineers at Canopolis Lake. How will we dictate to a federally controlled outflow center what they send us?
You just passed that right to me, didn't you? The South Platte River, there's the upper and the lower South Platte River. In response to the 1965 flood, as I mentioned earlier, 8 years later, Chatfield Reservoir was opened. The upper South Platte hits into the reservoir, Plum Creek hits into the reservoir, and then it goes downstream from there. There are tributaries that come in, but their impact on the river in terms of water is not that significant. So in terms of how do you engage with a federal agency like the Army Corps of Engineers, I don't have time to tell you that tonight. For those of you that are interested, there's a couple little article or a little blurb about the Chatfield Reallocation Project in our annual report, but I'm happy our contact information is within the annual report. We have two projects going on right now, one to allow the reservoir to hold more water for both municipal and ag needs, but what we are doing is making sure that as that water is released out of the reservoir, it's done in a strategic way so it provides environmental and recreational benefits at the same time. Better for fish, better for fishermen. And we are also involved in the second year of a 3-year study, a feasibility study with the Army Corps of Engineers to bring what I think will be impactive dollars to the South Platte River for what they call flood control mitigation or prevention, and the other one is ecosystem restoration. I don't care if they call it bippity boppity boo, they got a lot of money and I want our fair share. Core money is not fast money, core money is real money. And so I'd be glad at some point to talk to you about both of those projects and how they are triathlons, not a marathon, not a sprint, but at the end of the day, that's just two examples of how we engage, and that's just one federal agency. And so again, for the sake of time, for those of you that want, I'd be happy to visit with you more.
There is some, the statement of we're solely dependent upon the Corps releasing water from Canopolis Lake. There is a lot of truth to that. They do control some of the releases from the lake. There are times when the lake is above the conservation pool and that water flows freely out of the lake and down the river to all of the users below. And also, when groundwater and conditions are correct, the groundwater in the area actually feeds the Smoky Hill River and flow, so we'll see more water in the river than is actually coming out of the lake. It's a gaining stream when it's closer to Canopolis Lake, and we also have several tributaries that feed water into the Smoky Hill River. So water does find its way into our river from several different areas.
Okay, Jerry Sparks. How will this impact homeowners on the river? Will the land lawn next to the river be acquired, bought?
That's a really hard question. You want that, Martha? Well, right now we just have a master plan, and so we really have a vision and an idea of what the project could look like. What we don't have is a formal design plan, and in a formal design plan you'll say these are the limits of the project based on what you want to do. But so we don't know. The answer is really we don't know. But what I would say is that first of all the intent would be to keep the project in as reasonably narrow an area to do what the community would like us to do. I think that's important. And quite honestly, I think there is a bit of a concern from some people that, oh, here comes a project and my property's gone, and my neighbor's property's gone, and so forth. But I really don't think so. I think when we look at the information we have, for the most part, we have quite a bit of property around the river. There may be strips here and there that we'll have to look at, but until we get into design, we just don't know. But that's one of those things that as we plan along, we talk to people, we talk about the project, we talk about the impact. We really talk about, quite honestly, the effort to keep the current river clean. There might be concern about property, but in some places in town, we've noticed there's not as much concern about keeping their area clean, and that's really important too. So to keep it the way it is takes effort, and we've seen that effort. We've seen the volunteer effort, but some of the private properties, their lines actually go to the middle of the river, and in some locations they don't. So it really varies, and which is kind of interesting. So when I say it takes a community, that's really true. And our intent wouldn't be to harm anybody in any way, but to create something that's enjoyable for everybody, including the folks that live right beside it.
In our 41 years, we've not been involved in one single situation where adverse condemnation came in place. That's Denver. I endorse what you've just heard in terms of what I see for your river and the opportunities therein. There's a bucket load. That's another engineering term from Jeff Shoemaker. There's a bucket load of benefits that can happen to your river that don't need to get anywhere near private property and get into that situation. And again, it comes down to how does the community feel about that? How do they engage with their elected officials? But we have never, to benefit the river, have never walked into somebody's door and said, your property's mine.
Thank you. This is for Martha Ray. From what you saw, Jeff, sorry, can't read your writing. Something about okay, what have you learned, Jeff? What are you seeing about our river? I'm just assuming I'm understanding this. What are the 3 greatest assets and why? And what are the 3 greatest challenges and why about the Salina? Where's Martha? Is that right? Is that your question? That's it? Okay.
3 greatest opportunities? Yep. Let me do it more generically than that if I can, so that I don't try to fake a number 3 or a number 2 here. Your biggest challenge is accessibility. A second biggest challenge is overgrowth. Third challenge in no particular order is not exactly too much water in your river. I see those are all, those challenges are opportunities that you come in and you find the ability to pull banks back reasonably so you don't get into the situation we just talked about. You find opportunities to grade, and there's different ways based on how much land you have to either slope back or tear down a river. You go in and you preserve the healthy trees that are supposed to be there. You go in and acknowledge that there's probably, I'm going to make just a stupid guess and tell you I bet 50% of the trees that are along your river right now are invasive species, and I'm probably being conservative, and that's not a good thing. So the opportunities and challenges are there. Inaccessible, overgrowth, lack of water, and the greatest opportunities to bring back is I do accessibility and proper foresting. And I'm going to tell you this, and I said this to the inside group here. The goal is absolutely to work through the process to allow more water to be in the historic channel of your river. I absolutely agree with that, but I don't think it'd be a lousy Saturday if you had a fully accessible, usable trail system and an approachable system of banks with fishing piers and rest areas, and there wasn't a whole lot of water in the river. And there's a perfect example in Denver. It's called the Highline Canal. Look it up, Highline Canal, and it's 71 miles that winds through the metro area, very similar to your river, and there's not a lot of water in there, and it is massively used. Does that help at all? Yes? A little bit? We can talk more later. Okay.
All right. This is from Mary Ann Tankey. Many programs that benefit the community and children are not accepted by the Board of Ed because the project is an extra, and often the school system says no funds for buses or extras. How did the Greenway Foundation get the schools to back the programs to participate and educate?
Because they don't pay for them. We go out and get outside funding, and we bring our program to the school, and we bring the curriculum to the school, and we engage our staff with the children and the teachers so that they can choose, and without getting in the weeds too much, we have spree schools, and that is if you want your kindergartner, first, second, third, fourth, fifth grader each year to go on a tour, you need to adopt a river curriculum that we've created and established, and God, I'm not thinking of the right word. Patented isn't the right word. Trademark, that's the word I'm trying to trademark. And what it does is it says this is how you can teach art, this is how you can teach science, this is how you can teach math, this is how you can teach history, all connected with the South Platte River in Denver. And in exchange for that, you get a free program. It's not a fee-for-service thing. We get outside funding to make it happen. And in particular, 50% of our schools are free lunch programs, 90% or more. So if we charge for our program, the kids that actually have the least alternatives to get outside and play beyond their backyard wouldn't be able to play or participate in the program.
Thank you. If I understand correctly, there are no plans for this project to be part of the city's downtown revitalization. That makes no sense to me. Help me understand. Has there been discussion for downtown revitalization to be a part or not to be a part? What is the city thinking being a partner in this fantastic dream to become a reality?
That's a good question. In essence, they're really two different projects. The downtown project, which is really awesome and is a homegrown opportunity with business people that were either born or raised or spent most of their time here, gives us great opportunity downtown. But it wouldn't necessarily generate the funds by itself to do the things that some of you have seen listed in the media in the downtown, and also do the river. And so we don't really look at that as a viable means to fund it. But it doesn't mean that the river still isn't a complementary part to that, just because it's not a formal piece of what we call the STAR bond project or a tax increment finance project. And it doesn't mean it wouldn't ever be. It's just that's not what's in there right now. But because we really need to continue to work to find the ability and the desire from the community at the right time to fund the river project. And I think if we can do that, we'll have a great complementary project. And it does make sense. It'd be great if we could just do them all at the same time. Although I will say you wouldn't be able to get through any roads downtown, and all you'd see are cranes and dirt piles and things like that. So we have to think about that a little. But as we go along, we continue to think about how can a river project happen, because in my opinion, and that's just me speaking, that would take us to even the next level of what we could do downtown with all the investment that we've talked about. And it'd be an awesome place to be without question.
I would just like to say that both groups are cooperative with one another. We support their project, they support ours. Jane is on the Downtown Vision Committee, and so while the projects may not be happening at the same time, that doesn't mean that there's not support on either side.
They can hear you. Here.
Can you hear me now? Okay. What I was saying is that even though the projects are not happening at the same time, and that doesn't mean that there's a lack of support from one organization to the other. Jane is actually on the Downtown Vision Committee, and we definitely support all the efforts that they're doing and know that we have equal support from their side. So, that doesn't mean that we're not working together in other ways.
We're kind of running out of time, so I'm going to do 2 quick questions, and that'll be it. So thank you for all your questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get to yours, but some of these are kind of repetitive that I've looked through. So I've tried to pick the ones that have different subjects. Okay, trash is a terrible problem in our river. How do you ensure and maintain the cleanliness, trash, etc. of the river in order to keep glass and debris out so it is safe for individuals to play in and enjoy?
Man, she's passing that sucker to the left. We have an initiative at the Greenway Foundation called PURE, Protect Urban River Environment. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Cuddly. It's also been called Provoke Urban Regulatory Entities. It just depends on which audience you have. But the reality is that to this day, trash in the neighborhood equals trash in the river. When you dump, what do you think is the #1 trash enemy of the South Platte River watershed? What would you guess? Fast food is #2. Cigarette butts. The world is my ashtray. Okay? Cigarette butts. And it's not just by number, it's by weight. Cigarette butts. So for this young man who's right in front of me, understand that that's okay. That's okay. You're doing something way cooler than me. That's all right. But well, very good. Your grandma's up here. Yeah. What we're trying to teach people is trash in my. If you pollute in your neighborhood, if you wash your car on your driveway, if you dump oil, if you throw grass clippings, but at the end of the day, anything that gets into a stormwater pipe ends up in the South Platte River or its tributaries. So we're looking at that right now. How does that happen? And then the second thing is aggressive maintenance. There is a specifically dedicated maintenance crew for the South Platte River in Denver. They're specially trained, they're specially equipped. They do different things than a standard city park needs. And so I am a believer. My father said, don't build it if you're not going to maintain it. And so it's very important from the get-go, and I know your city leaders agree with this. And that's one of the cost realities you got to factor into something like this. If I build it, they will come, and when they come, not everybody is a Boy Scout in terms of how they take care of things. And without being too crude, sometimes, you have to plan for stupid. And so you make sure that in addition to creating an amenity, that you have the workforce and the funding in place to maintain it, and you get citizenry involved. We have 2 events every year, spring and fall river sweep. 500 to 1,000 people come down. I know you all are doing that as well. Come down and you take on a river and you get more done with 500 people in 5 hours than any crew can do, because there's always limits. There's always limits to how much any one municipality or county can do. But number 1, try to keep it from coming in. Number 2, be prepared to take it out. And number 3, get the community involved and bond with your river and make it yours. And be the greatest teachers. It's not government's job to always be the teacher. It's our job to teach each other and ourselves.
Yeah, I would like to speak to that. Is it 78 storm drains? Somewhere around that, Martha? We have 78 storm drains that are draining into our old channel. So it still has a very functional purpose. That is where the trash is coming from all over Salina. And I really believe that I'm hoping we can start an education program for our children and hopefully adults also, to let them know what they are doing to their own river. I really believe people don't understand, because it's out of sight, out of mind. They have no idea where it's going. They just turn on the faucet, it's clean water. Thank you, Martha, for that. But it makes it really easy to just trash it up because you don't know it's running down into the river. I think we have a real job in front of us to try to educate our community about what's happening. Okay.
And I'm sorry, I failed to tell you there are technologies out there, and there's 3 or 4 different types that either prevent trash from coming out of the end pipe or collect it once it's there. So there's prevention or collection. It's money, but I am working right now with the City and County of Denver to do 3 different pilot projects on what it would take, 3 different mechanisms to come in and give them a try and give them an opportunity. But again, it's money, and that's one of the things that, in all honesty, as the outside guy, it's easy for me to say this because I'm going home tomorrow, but I strongly urge everyone involved that as you create this amenity, when you create this amenity, that you recognize 78 storm sewers are there, and how can we both, with public awareness but public investment, not let your river be your default trash dump.
Okay, this is the last question. This is from Dina Berquist. Oh, very good. Okay. All right, there you are.
Did I do okay?
Yeah. Okay. Let's see, kind of add this. Oh, our river has an inconsistent flow. What ideas do you have to ensure that our low-flow river can maintain a viable flow year-round, year after year? Did we answer that already? Okay, I don't think we did. Okay.
Ooh, oh, Martha, you got to go at that first. I got to make something up here in a minute, so.
During the master plan, we put great effort into looking at the historical flows in the Smoky Hill River and what we might anticipate would be available for this project. And we all know that drought is a situation that we've had here in Salina over the past 10 years. And as a part of the plan, there's a couple of options we have there. One was to use a backup during drought from the Lakewood Park, which is a groundwater supply from the lake there. Another opportunity that's came about in the last 2 or 3 years is an assurance district that we have the ability to purchase storage in Canopolis Lake that would allow us to use that water for a recreational purpose. In previous years, it had typically been for either municipal use or industrial use. Now we have another opportunity there. And looking a little further down the road, it was briefly mentioned in our master plan, but was the use of effluent from our wastewater treatment plant that's about a mile and a half downstream. We have an upgrade in our treatment plant that's proposed probably 5 to 7 years from now, and we'd have some opportunities to do some things with the effluent from the treatment plant that would make it very functional for this river project. So we have some other components for water that back up the river.
Let me just give you an example to tack on to what Martha just said. We are involved in a project involving Chatfield Reservoir. The reservoir is going to be allowed to hold an additional 20,000 acre-feet. We literally tomorrow, there will be a signing ceremony tomorrow afternoon between water providers, the Greenway Foundation, others, to dictate who gets how much of that 20,000, bless you twice, 20,600 acre-feet. About 10% of it is going to be set aside in what we call an environmental pool. And that 2,000 acre-feet, plus or minus, will be released at strategic times during the course of the river when the river is historically low, so that it's better sustainability for wildlife and better opportunity for recreation. And I know we're done. I'm not flying out till tomorrow, so I'm going to step in the back here in just a second, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you guys might have.
One thing to add to that, too, when Martha was talking about the water and coming from Canopolis, one of the things that we did some time ago, many of you will remember not too many years ago when we had a pretty bad drought and there wasn't much water in the river. And what happens is when there's plenty of water in the river each year, the Corps of Engineers allow so much to fall into it. And during the summertime, it's less than during other times. And during the summertime, when it's hot and dry, obviously there's less water in the river. And Martha mentioned a security district, and across the state you can form what they call assurance districts, and that's kind of like buying insurance. If your water level goes to their flows go to a certain level, you can have them send more water to you. So we have that, but our security district's really important because what we did is we brought in the irrigators, all the farmers between Canopolis Lake and the city, and that's a key thing because in all the assurance districts across the state, they're not allowed to be involved. It's just cities and industries. But we felt like instead of being the typical city that might fight with their farmers, we said, you know, we're all using the same resource. Farmers are pretty important. I like to eat. I can't speak for the rest of you. I'll enjoy that. But it's really important to get along with them in our region, and they've worked with us very, very well. So they're a part of our district, and what we basically said is we've said, hey, it's okay, even in the summertime, to hold more water in the reservoir than they normally would. Don't drop it in the river if we don't need it. And it's a sort of, at this point, a bit of it's somewhat of a semi-formal agreement, and that's because we felt they're important, they felt we were important, and we all needed to work together. And it won't solve the worst case of every drought, but it does make a difference, and it's that type of thing that makes a difference. So that's a partnership example that we're proud of, and it's just one piece to that to answering that question.
Would you say thank you to our panelists? Thank you so much. And I'd like to say thank you to Jeff so much for all he has offered us. Thank you. If you haven't turned in your surveys, there are some lovely volunteers in the back. There is another little bookmark for you that has a lot of information about the economic impact on a community and other things. Thank you so much for coming. This gives me great hope to see this many people caring about our river. Thank you very much.